I also want to say a big, big, big thank you to my wonderful museum ladies, Lenora, Elaine, and Dolores, Bonnie, Kay, and Ruth, of course. I could not do this without you guys. I know I seem totally scrambled and all over the place, but trust me, I would be way worse without you. So, and Candace, you did. I'm sorry. Okay. So, getting started. I just wanted to go through a quick timeline of events to kind of jog your all's memories. So, then I'll start the question and answer session. We're talking mainly about the time period between 1939 and 1945. 39 and 40, of course, the U.S. was not involved. We had not declared war on anybody. We were still producing war material for England. But at that point, that was when Hitler and Germany basically took over the continent of Europe, stretching from, and if we want to get technical, stretching from the Russia border in the east all the way through into France. And going back and looking at the Odessan, didn't really report all that much on that kind of, on the happenings prior to us declaring war. But there's a lot about the Lend-Lease program and helping Britain, providing blankets for, was it blankets for bombers? Something like that. It was a program that people around here did or participated in. But then on December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. And also, we have a copy of that exact speech over there on one of those boards. I found it, so I thought I would share that. So Pearl Harbor happened, and that was, I can only imagine what it must have felt like being a part of that, being in that age group of men and women who died on that day. We have some photos for Pearl Harbor that were taken by a guy there, and they have never been released to the press. They're his own private photos, and we have more in the museum that help show the devastation and the chaos that happened that day. So Pearl Harbor was December 7th, 1941. We declared war on the Axis powers of Germany, Japan, and Italy shortly thereafter. And this is just a brief, important, major events. There's way, way more. We could spend all day talking about it. But then the Battle of Midway, that was, from my understanding, the turning point of the war in the Pacific. Prior to that, Japan had swept all over, and we had not been able to gain a victory or gain a foothold until the Battle of Midway. And then it was almost a full year until the Axis, in May of 43, the Axis powers surrendered in North Africa. We were able to kick Rommel and his Africa Corps out of there. And then the big day, of course, was June 6, 1944, with Operation Neptune and Overlord, the D-Day landings. Then, just a short couple of months later, on August 25th, 1944, we liberated Paris. And then, in that next May, by May 8th, 1945, was Victory in Europe Day. So as I'm naming these dates off, it occurred to me that we're only talking about a short period of time. You know, from 39 to 45 is only 6 years, but all this stuff happened, you know, everything. Yeah, anyway, sorry. I'm telling you, my brain is completely shot. So, and then, so VE Day was in May, and August was VJ Day, Victory in Japan, and the official end of the war was September 16th, 1945. So, hopefully that jogged a few memories for you. But anyways, so I'm going to hand you a mic, and basically, I was going to interview the veterans first. If you could tell us your name and how long have you lived in the Odessa area, okay?
Yeah, I'm going to get Cindy to...
It's on. You're good.
I'm going to get Cindy here. She wrote up a little speech and...
We'll just answer the questions.
Huh?
We'll just answer the questions.
Just
Your name?
answer the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your name?
It's okay. What's your name? Who are you?
Glenn Dennis,
Yeah.
and he moved to Odessa in 1958.
Okay.
Okay. Pass it on.
And I'm James Stalmer. We moved in the Odessa area in 1971.
Oh, I thought you'd been here longer than that.
I'm Robert Slusher. I lived here all my life, and I won't say how long that is. But I was born in 1932, so you do the math. So I've seen a lot of things happen in Odessa, pre-war, during the war, post-war.
I'm a Northeast, and I moved here in December of '65.
Right on. Okay. Well, you keep the mic. And I would like to know what branch of the military did he serve in? When did he enlist or get drafted? And how old was he when that happened? When
He got called up for the draft. He was living in the Bate City, Wellington, Napoleon area. The first time he got called up was when he was 18 years old in 1943. He was working for a guy farming, so he didn't have to go at that time. Then he got called up again in 1944, and he was telling me that just about everybody he knew was going in. So he figured he might as well go on and go. So he went in August the 3rd, 1944. He was in the Army, a private. He went to Camp Robinson, Arkansas for basic training. And then he spent 13 months as a private first-class rifleman. He served with Company G and Company F in the 2nd Infantry Regiment, the 5th Division of the 3rd Army, and he participated in the Rhineland and Central Europe campaigns. He separated on July 1st, 1946, and on February 3rd, 1945, his brother's 7th birthday, he was wounded near Luxembourg. He was a rifleman, and he has a Purple Heart.
Okay, awesome, thank you. All right, Jim, so what branch did you serve in? When did you enlist, or when did you get drafted, and how old were you?
I was 18 when I was drafted, and I went into service at Jefferson Barracks, Missouri. And then from there, when I went in, they asked me what size shoe I wore. And I said 13D, and I guess they didn't have them, so they gave me a 12A. When I got in the marching, I had March fractures.
Oh, wow.
So I was on limited service.
Oh, okay.
And I went to Camp Robinson.
Oh, you went to the same camp?
Robinson, Arkansas.
Oh.
Same place I was.
Oh, wow. Small world.
Then when my company got through their basic, they sent them on out, and my papers went with them, but I didn't.
Oh.
So then I stayed in Camp Robinson until they closed it down.
Oh.
Then they sent me to Oakland Army Base, and I was out there 2 weeks.
Mm.
From there, they sent me to Fort Lewis, Washington.
Oh, wow, so you went all over the place.
The second day I was out there, the first sergeant come out and said, well, everybody with 18 months in has been discharged. And I said, well, I've got 20 months in and I'm still here. So the next day I had my discharge.
Oh, wow. Well, right on.
The disability started in October. I was discharged in the 9th of August. And 45,
Uh-huh.
and my disability started in October.
Oh, right on. Pass the mic back to her. I want to get your all's stories, and then we'll go get to the kids. This way. Her. The end. Sorry.
I'm Cindy.
Cindy.
Hello.
So you mentioned earlier, was your father in any major battles?
Yeah.
Which ones were he? I can't talk.
Well, I'm not sure of the timing and everything, but he was in Patton's Third Army, of
Okay.
course, which is Ardennes. And they called it Rhineland and Central Europe campaign, but the press, of course, called that Battle of the Bulge.
Oh, okay.
Luxembourg.
Okay.
So he was there. He wasn't there during the Christmas part of it. He actually shipped out from, well, he left his home in Bate City. After he got through basic, he came home to Bate City, and his very youngest brother, Charles Wayne Dennis, was born while he was home on 30-day furlough.
Oh.
And they also heard at that time that Dad's uncle, Lewis Rudd of Independence, Missouri, was killed October 24th, 1944, near San Clemente, Italy.
Oh.
And so his grandmother had just told him about that and everything. So he left Bate City December 24th, 1944, got on the train. He went to Fort Meade, Maryland, and he shipped across in a convoy of, they had the troops on these very large ships, and they had oil tankers and everything, and they only had one, like, near a miss or whatever. They thought that there was a submarine close by the ship. So Dad was telling me today that the cook told them all to get away from the middle of the boat, to all go to the sides of it, because if they had gotten hit by a torpedo, I guess the center of the boat goes down, or the water starts rushing up through that. So they were very scared, and they were like doing death charges off the boat as they were,
Oh, wow.
going across the ocean. It took 8 days to cross the ocean. They landed in Le Havre, France, and Dad said that so much of that, just where you're supposed to dock the boat, so much of that was just blown away that they had barges lined up to the ship. So when you got off the ship, you just walk across these barges to get to the actual land. And he was telling me that when he got to Le Havre, France, of course there were soldiers all around him, and some of them hadn't been home for 2 or 3 years. And of course he didn't know anyone, and he had to go to this old farmhouse or house in France, and France was just destroyed because the war had already been through there. The buildings were riddled, and it was just kind of horrible to see the devastation. But he got to this old house, and there were soldiers all around, and someone started calling his name, and it was his his friend Kenneth Burbina